welcome to the Malliard Report. I'm your host, Jim Malliard. Before the Fast Hour on Paranormal Talk Radio starts, please go over to facebook.com/italkparanormal and give it a like. And leave a message telling me what show you're listening to. I enjoy the fan feedback.
The opinions expressed in the Malliard Report are those of the host and participants and are not intended to and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any simulcasting radio network or sponsor. All listeners are advised to make their own decisions.
It's the Malliard Report, yeah, the Malliard Report, the paranormal talk radio show with Jim Malliard as your host. See what lies beneath any paranormal activity. Go inside a world that others don't want to see. It's the Malliard Report, yeah, the Malliard Report.
Well, before we flip that on-air sign to the
And hang out with the Malliard Report tonight. Jeez, I forget to say that. Brian, you probably talk about books so much. It seems like you forget to talk about the titles all the time because you're so involved with them. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
This is Tom
Absolutely.
So
author of the book.
I know who I am, so I don't have to introduce myself over and over again. But you're Brian-Rathbone?
An originator of the theory of
Did I say your last name right?
And you
Yes, Brian-Rathbone.
I'm
I'm sorry, I'm catching another bit of audio in my ear.
Hi, this is Dave Roundtree, author of...
Stop that. I told you to stop. Are you good now?
No, now we're good.
Okay. My ending music was starting to play without me. That would have been the shortest show in the history of man right there. Well, it was nice talking to you, boy.
But yes, I'm sorry about that. My name is Brian Rathbone, and I'm the author of the World-of-Godsland fantasy series.
Yeah, and good night. No. I'm taking the show to Twitter form now, so. Okay. You're obviously, you just mentioned you're a fantasy writer, so tell me a little bit more about that. What's going on there?
Well, essentially, I grew up in southern New Jersey on a horse farm, a working horse farm where we trained standard-bred racehorses, and it was kind of like growing up in 100 years earlier and having this little microcosm where there was a blacksmith and all these old world types of things, and yet I was kind of living in the modern world, so I always felt like I lived in a bit of a fantasy world anyway. And in grade school, I developed a love for reading after having a hate for reading for a long time. I never liked to read books until I found A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L. Engel. And that book just opened my eyes and showed me that reading could be fun. I developed a love for reading fantasy and science fiction and paranormal and supernatural and Greek mythology, and all those things kind of fascinated me. And while I was reading all of those things, I would kind of dream about writing my own story. And when I finally got the chance to write later in life, I couldn't type fast enough. It just kind of came natural to me. So I think the writing definitely came out of the reading.
That's a good thing that you turned it around and started liking to read, because if not, you never would have had this development, I don't think.
No, and it's interesting because I spent a lot of my career in technology as a programmer, as a network engineer, working for .coms and doing things like that. And they were very, very stressful jobs, and jobs I would take home with me. I worked from home for a lot of those years, so it was kind of natural for me to take the job home with me. But what I was finding was that I was thinking about work before I went to sleep, and I would spend my nights debugging code and writing code in my head, which wasn't all that productive and was kind of exhausting. So what I decided to do was every night before I'd go to bed, I would think about the story I was going to someday write. And I would work on plot lines and world building and just kind of envision all the different things and aspects that I wanted to bring into the story. And when I left one of the .coms that I was with and had a severance package that I was able to spend a couple months just working on the book, it was a wonderful experience and an enlightening experience writing that first novel.
I bet. speaking of .coms, go ahead and plug yours so before I forget.
brian-rathbone.com. It's Brian with an A, and Rathbone spelled the same as Basil.
I actually have it up right now. And I'm, well, if the big duck, my site's pretty much has green on it too, so I'm a big fan. So.
I'm wanting to redo the website. The website's due for a refresh. It's been like that since 2008, and I think probably you'll see a new look and feel on there soon. But I'm still a fan of the green, so I don't know if that'll go away.
Man, how do you do that? I've updated my page like it seems like the joke is like every time I wake up I update my website. I'm always touching it.
I have been blissfully unaware that my website exists. Just trying to pretend it's not there. It's kind of like my blog. It's that thing I did when I thought I was going to keep it up all the time, but I never really go back and actually work on it. So it's kind of out there, but it's not as up to date as it should be. And I'm probably spending too much time on Twitter and not enough time updating my website.
Well, Twitter's microblogging, so I can give you a pass there.
Exactly. I am a prolific microblogger. I actually do have a lot of fun on Twitter with writers and readers and fans and just other creatives and folks interested in fantasy and science fiction and the paranormal. It's such a great place to go find that community. I live out in a rural area that's, not really a place where you find a lot of sci-fi fans and fantasy fans. So to have that interaction on Twitter is actually it's really a nice thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's how this interview came together. I can't remember the exact premise of it, but we were up late one night tweeting, and you know how that goes. That's always a good way to find people. So.
Exactly. That's how I find so many people. That's how they find me. We just get out on Twitter and we talk about things, and there was probably something paranormal that came up. I did write one story that is as a paranormal story and not really a fantasy. My fantasy novels are young adult fantasy, suitable for ages 10 and up, and I try to keep those really clean and something that my nieces and nephews can read, and my grandmother can read, and everybody enjoys the story and not really worry about any embarrassing moments. But when I wrote Lore, I did not let any of the things hold me back. That's a more adult title, and I had a lot of fun reliving my teenage years. I was a little bit wild as a teenager, and a lot of that book was kind of reliving some of those memories and some of the just really funny things that happened, and kind of tying it into a paranormal story that is probably not the strongest element. It's kind of a comedy with a paranormal element rather than a paranormal story with a comedic element. But definitely the paranormal side of that story is something that I really enjoyed writing. It's difficult to do well. I definitely find writing paranormal stories tricky to keep it believable, to have it, to kind of coddle that suspension of disbelief and not yank, somebody so hard in the opening scenes that they kind of go, oh, well, that could never happen. It's a tricky thing to write believable paranormal.
I believe it because that's what my baby paranormal. Being an investigator and a radio show host or talk show host or whatever you want to call it. Because you hear so many stories from people and you go, I'm sure they threw 800 feet across the room. I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. I've done a little bit of paranormal investigation myself. I have one paranormal investigation under my belt, so I am a pro. I'll talk about it all night long. But yes, we had several folks thrown 20 feet across the room, but really, in truth, all we really did was some interaction with static on somebody's radio. That was a little bit questionable. So I don't know that I've had any successful paranormal investigations, but I have actually gone out and given it a shot.
That's all I can really ask. I mean, some guests I have, I had Jim DeFelice on, who co-authored American Sniper with Chris Kyle and was on the New York Times bestseller list for a number of weeks. I was emailing him back and forth, and he asked me, he said, point blank, why do you let me on your show? I didn't know nothing about the paranormal. I said, I want you on my show because I want to talk about your book. I don't care about everybody else. Can just suck it for a night. I'm just gonna have this. I'm gonna have a fun show with you. If it turns off my paranormal listeners, fine. I'm sure I'll find a few listeners that are fans of the Chris Kyle book. So
I understand completely. There was a time when I was a co-host for a show called Patio Racket, where we talked about free audio books over at patiobooks.com, and every once in a while, kind of more than that, we'd get folks that weren't going that route but still wanted to be on the show, and it was nice to be able to bring some fresh ideas and people doing other things onto the show, so even if it was a little bit off topic. But, fortunately in this particular case, I think I have had, my experiences with the paranormal. There's been, a number of things that happened for me early in life that kind of showed me that there was something going on out there that I certainly didn't understand then and don't fully understand now. And I find the field of paranormal investigation fascinating. It's something that, I have a lot of interest in. I'm not skilled at it in any way, shape, or form, but I do find it very, very intriguing.
It's fun to delve a little bit further into it outside your comfort zone, especially when it gets into, I love talking about Bigfoot, but I don't do it often. It's just fascinating. Mm-hmm. And
it is one of those topics that can easily run people out of a room, but at the same time, it is a fascinating topic, even if you come at it from the aspect, the anthropological aspect of why are all these people all over the world seeing the same thing. That side of it really is rather curious.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder. I mean, they're seeing it, and then people are seeing, UFOs, and it's is there a connection? Is it the same type of person, or is it some mystical being projecting in ways that they don't accept because some people don't accept Bigfoot and don't accept UFOs? Makes you wonder.
It really does make you wonder, and, I've always kind of been somebody who has a scientific mind. I take a scientific approach when I look at things, but at the same time, I've always been one to look at conventional science a bit askance, because I figure 5 years from now they're going to tell me that their latest discovery is that they were wrong. And really, all that stuff that we were saying was absolutely true really isn't quite. And quantum physics and some latest discoveries, the fact that the speed of light is actually variable, dependent on gravity and things like that. It really just that really fascinates me.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like the eggs thing, because one week they're good for you, the next week they're bad for you. It just slow down.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Let's just say they're okay.
Guess what? I hear this all the time, morbid obesity. Well, I've got news for you. Even if you're not fat, morbidism has an undefeated track record. Nobody's lived forever yet, so...
Right. Yes, we are all at some level morbidly alive.
Yeah.
And as my good friend James Smith Patterson says to me every once in a while, we are all currently able bodies. But, yeah, for now. Enjoy it while it lasts.
My guest tonight is Brian Rathbone of brian-rathbone.com, fantasy writer. Why not, I don't know, why not historical biographies or something else? Why fiction?
I wanted something fun. I've done really difficult, stressful things to make a living, and I kind of came to the realization that just because you're really good at doing something, maybe that doesn't mean that's what you should be doing. If it doesn't make you happy, and at the end of the day, you maybe have money, but you're miserable, and you're stressed out, and you feel sick from all the stress. And when I wanted to read as a kid, and even then, it was somewhat escapism for me. I don't look down my nose on speculative fiction for its escapist element. It did allow me to go somewhere else. I kind of always felt like if I'm going to read a book, why do I want to read about the world I know? I want to read about a world I don't know, and where we can explore things that I've never seen and may never see. So there was that love of the what if and the speculative nature, and just being such a lover of Tolkien and Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman and Terry Brooks and so many, Melanie Ron, so many great authors that wrote such great fantasies that hooked me in, and just when I put them down, I was sad. You know, I remember when I finished the Belgariad, I remember being sad, and when I remember finishing, other series that I read and then putting that last book down and knowing, unless that author pulls something out of a hat, that's the last I'll hear from those characters. And those experiences kind of, I wanted to be the person who created something that somebody else had that same experience with. That they could connect with my book and my world and my story the way that I connected with these other authors' stories.
Yeah, makes sense to me to try to connect people that route. Excuse me, as my mouth gets really dry. That's always awesome. So you were talking about earlier as you transitioned from reading to writing. How long a process did it take? I mean, obviously you probably just started writing, but how long did it become before you decided that that's something you were actually going to follow through with?
Well, it's interesting. I started writing novels a couple of times over maybe a 15-year period, and didn't really like what I started with, and kind of reached the point I think that stops many writers, which is I wrote a little something, I went back and I read it, I didn't like it, and therefore I figured I wasn't very good at it, it wasn't going to turn into anything, and I would not get where I wanted to go, and there were other easier things to spend my time on, so I went and did those things. But then in 2005, I was sitting in Atlanta airport on a layover, a 2-hour layover in the airport, on my way home from a programmers convention in Texas. And I just knew that my days as a programmer, technology guy, were numbered. I couldn't take it anymore. I knew at that point, gotta have something else. And I had a choice between maybe going to work in NASCAR because I was a race fan. I live around the race teams. I worked in that field for a little bit. I kind of had that option. And the other option of my other dream that I might want to chase was the writing. And I learned something from racing horses, that when you do something fun for a living, sometimes it takes all the fun out of it. So maybe if I wanted my hobby of racing was going to be my hobby, maybe I didn't want to work in the racing field. And so I decided to go ahead and pursue the writing. And when I was sitting there in the airport that day, I just pulled out my laptop, fired it up, and thought, I have absolutely nothing else to do with my time. I am trapped in an airport for hours. If you're ever going to do it now. And fortunately, I came to a point where when I went back this time and read what I had written and didn't like it, I think I'd grown a little bit from the last time and realized that writing is a process, and that the first draft was probably not going to be all that good, and it was going to be when I come back later and edit it and polish it, and as I grow and get better as a writer, what I write will get better, and that's the way that it has gone. But it was a learning process, and a growing process, because when you go into writing, it's such at least when I went into it with such enthusiasm and such just unbridled joy of I'm finally going to do what I said I was always going to do, and had so much fun with it. But then there's the unpleasant part of reading it back, recognizing your weaknesses, overcoming your fear of failure, and putting yourself out there and allowing yourself to be judged by others. That was something that took me a little bit longer to get there. And just working with an editor was a little bit of a, the first round of edits stung. It felt like I was getting criticized, but that wasn't the case. She was teaching me how to be a better writer. So it just took a bit for me to grow into the role.
That's something I always love to ask writers about, because I'm a horrible writer, self-inflicted. And people always like, why don't you edit that? I'm like, I can't imagine.
It is definitely not the most fun part of the process.
I've never heard of anybody that's enjoyed it, so...
No, but at the end of the day, it is where a lot of the real magic happens. Yeah, it's funny because my sister-in-law read my books, and I had worked with a professional editor. When I came out with my second trilogy, my editor was busy, and we still worked together, but I had about a 6-week gap. So I decided to work with some beta readers. Sent it out to some of my, biggest fans, some family members. My sister-in-law's an English teacher, and she's done some editing. And just read it over, help me polish it up, because the more I could polish my manuscript before I send it to the pro, the better. So she's finding the good stuff, the real, instead of having to fix my grammatical errors and spelling errors, she's finding plot holes and giving me great creative feedback. And, when Donna looked at it and she says, geez, you used the same word 5 times in 2 sentences. That's not like you. And I said, well, actually, that's exactly like me. I do that all the time, but I don't realize I've done it until we reach the editing phase. And even then, somebody half the time has to point it out to me. That's one of the reasons that I recommend to especially, independent writers out there, self-published writers, you got to work with an editor, and it's best to work with a pro, somebody you don't know, somebody who doesn't love you, and somebody who isn't going to hold back because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Because it's almost impossible to edit your own work successfully. You can do it, but your brain will fix things for you, and what you'll see is what you think it should say instead of what it actually says.
Very true, because I try editing my own shows, and I have a very, very hard time doing that. So
it's a difficult thing. And I've done a little bit on the audio side, too, and it's a challenge. In fact, I actually use audio as an editing tool when I sit down to edit a manuscript, because I know my brain will flip words for me and do things like that. I actually use text-to-speech to read the document back to me while I'm looking at it. And sometimes my ears will find things my eyes miss.
That's very, very interesting. I had never heard anybody tell me about that before. It makes sense to me. So
I've used it a number of times now that the text-to-speech thing has come in handy. And the other thing I do is, I had a job for a while where I was driving a lot. And I would just have it read the manuscript back to me while I was driving, and not edit, but listen for plot things, listen for things that I could just kind of make a note of or make a mental note of while I was driving. But just having it read back to me in somebody else's voice, my brain processes it differently.
Yeah, I hear that. My problem was when I tried to edit my show, I listened for the good, my goal is to create this best of kind of deal. And I listen, and I go, I should have asked, and I missed the whole clip. And then
It's a difficult thing to look back at work you've done in the past. It's one of the things I struggle with as a writer. I mean, I'm currently working on the 7th book in a series. And I am so tempted to go back and rewrite the beginning of the first one, because I've learned so much, and I've grown as a writer, and I recognize the weaknesses and just the feedback that I've gotten from the thousands of reviews and ratings and all those sorts of things. I know the beginning of that first book starts a little too slow, and I would make some changes. But it's one of those things. It's like you said, when you go back, it's so easy to find fault with everything that you've done. That sometimes it's better just put your blinders on and pile forward.
Definitely is. The Malliard Report, 25 minutes in, second mention, doing much better tonight than a few other nights. My guest tonight is Brian Rathbone, brian-rathbone.com. I mentioned brian-rathbone.com again because I have down here on the bottom of my notes, like I almost forgot to mention this, and so I'm bringing it up now before I forget again. You've got a couple books on your website that are free.
I do indeed, and that's been one of my biggest strategies for just reaching out to readers. Is the first two ebooks in the World of Godsland Fantasy series are free. That way, readers can try my work at no risk to them. If they don't like it, they didn't lose anything, and if they did like it, chances are they'll go on and look for the other books in the series, which are all, I think, very reasonably priced. They're all $2.99 a piece. So yeah, that's something that the free ebooks has been a gift to me. If I could give away 1 million ebooks tonight, I would be the happiest individual on the planet. So
me too,
I love giving away ebooks. Now, how is that for you?
That'd be great for me. If I could get you giving away 5, I'd be happy.
All right, well, I'll take it. I'll take the 5. But yeah, not only are those first 2 ebooks free, but Chris Snellgrove is a voice artist that I hired for doing all of the premium audio books for the World of Godsland Fantasy series. And he has completed the first 2 books in the series. And if you go grab the free ebook, you can get the premium audio book for $2 from Amazon or Audible, which I thought was a pretty good deal.
I was going to say, audio book for $2, you might as well just slap it down and get it done.
Exactly. It's got 9 hours of audio. That should be a pretty good investment. If you got a road trip coming up, there you go.
There you go. Better than listen to me for an hour. You can listen to something actually has a point.
Well, it's interesting. I got my start in audio. In 2008, I had the completed trilogy. I kind of had those, those dreams of finding an agent, landing the big book deal, sweeping the world off its feet with my books and going on from there. And that's not what happened. And I kind of took it personally at first because I couldn't even get an agent to give me a time of day. But it was a really tough time for the industry. And for agents and publishers, they needed to put food on the table, and they needed to publish books that they knew were going to sell. And I didn't have an audience. Nobody knew who I was. Everybody was clamoring for my next book. So I really didn't have anything to give that agent the inclination that I was going to sell any books, and I don't think any of them even read the first page of my book. I didn't get past the bad business case cutoff. So I kind of had to circle the wagons and say, well, what am I going to do? And I made, I'm not going to say it's the best decision. I'm not going to say it was a huge mistake. But in 2008, it was what looked like the right thing to do, which was to pay somebody to lay out a book for print, pay somebody to lay out the cover, and purchase an offset print run, print off 1,000 books, and sell them. And that was insane. I should not have done that. I didn't lose my shirt, but I was without my shirt for a good long period of time. So I've made good on that. But it really wasn't until 2009 that I was finally gave in to my friend Steve McCarthy. I always have to give Steve credit for this because he bugs me incessantly. When are you going to do an audio version? When are you going to do an audio version? I don't have time to read your books, but I listen to audio books all day long at work. Do an audio book and I'll read your books. And then he kept bugging me about J.C. Hutchins. J.C. Hutchins. If he talked to me about J.C. Hutchins one more time, I was going to disown him. But he was right. What J.C. Hutchins had done was recorded his books as podcasts, given them away to audiobooks.com, which distributes out through iTunes, and built a massive audience for his work by giving it away. And when I looked at what he did, I said, you know what? It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be an investment. I was right about both of those things, by the way. But I recorded the first 3 books myself. And my biggest regret is that I'm a lousy narrator. Other than that, I don't regret it very much. But if I could have been a better narrator at the time, that probably would have worked out better. But the truth of the matter is, I've had over 800,000 episodes of those free audiobooks downloaded. They're still available today for folks out there. I know there's a lot of folks out there who don't have a budget for books. They don't have a budget for audiobooks. That's another reason I like to give stuff away, is because at least those folks out there are looking for some content for their Kindle or something for their iPod or something to listen to on their commute. They can grab my content, and if they don't mind listening to me narrate it, they can listen to my first 3 books for free. And I have no problem with that at all.
Hey, if they're willing to listen, that's a good thing to give them away and get them in people's hands, so to speak, I guess, like you were saying, through the Kindle and stuff.
Exactly.
So
and really all the cost was, for me, it was investing in a good podcasting rig, a good recording rig, and I probably spent a little more than I needed to, but I got a good one. That way I was set. And taking the time, it took me 3 months of all my free time to record and edit 40 hours of finished audio.
I can't imagine. Like I said, I tried to do 1 hour, and I just want to shoot myself.
It was excruciating, I have to tell you. The editing, as much as I dislike editing text, editing audio is my nightmare.
Yeah, I was going to say, that just can't be fun. Listening to your own voice for hours on end, just...
And it never failed that whenever I had time to record, my neighbor would fire up his bulldozer, or, I would have noise pollution that there was just no way I was going to get around. The birds would be singing right outside the windows of my office. I struggled with the clean recording environment. Having a environment where I wasn't getting a lot of noise was really tricky.
Yeah, I understand that one completely as well. So you kind of delved through the self-publishing route. So what would you advise people to do today if they were finished their first book and decided, hey, obviously like you were, there's no agent that's going to pick them up and take them to Random House or wherever?
I mean, if they're already famous for some reason, if they have a professional edge or something along those lines, I'm a fan of traditional publishing. I will seek a traditional book deal myself in the future. But what I decided to do, and probably what I would recommend to anybody who's already made that decision to self-publish, is to build an audience and a sales track record and a platform using the self-publishing tools that are available today. And by doing that, if you succeed and you get your story out to enough people and they like it, and it starts to succeed, people will notice. And I can say that once I hit the bestseller charts on Amazon and stayed there for consistently for a period of time, once I got over a certain number of books sold, I did have New York agencies contact me and ask me if I was looking for representation. So it did work. For me, doing the audiobooks thing, getting all the fan base through the audiobooks, moving over and self-publishing and giving away enough valuable content that people could try my work for free, and then having enough content behind that I could sell books, earn a living, and continue to do this. It's extremely powerful, and it doesn't work for everybody, but it is a wonderful model that's worked well for me and about a half a dozen other authors that I've mentored, worked with, shared tips with. There's been quite a few of us who've gone from making beer money to mortgage money in a pretty short period of time once you adopt a few principles of marketing free ebooks.
We might have to talk off air about this, because I think I could replace ebook with podcast and have some fun.
Absolutely. Podcast is content. Audio is content. And if you're producing content that people enjoy, you can give it away for free.
Which I do.
Which you do. But you can also then repackage that same content in a convenient package and sell it. One, I find that, a lot of my fans that contact me will say, hey, you don't charge enough for your books. You're giving them away too cheap. I want to give you more money, essentially, for that story. And what I will do is say, hey, buy the omnibus edition, which has all 3 books in one, and I charge a little more for that, for the convenience, and for the people who want to give me a little bit more money, hey, go for it. Buy the audio book, do something along those lines, but I'm not raising my prices because accessibility, and volume.
I need some of your fans. No.
It has been interesting how it works. I mentioned the thing with J.C. Hutchins, and Hutchins is a great guy, and he's doing well with his publishing efforts now, but what a lot of podcasters were finding was that it's difficult to monetize a podcast that you're giving away. It's difficult to say, hey, I'm giving this content away for free, but if you really loved it, go to my website, hit the donate button, and PayPal me $10. That happens a lot less frequently.
Yes.
And it's not that I'm one of those people. I have consumed a lot of podcasts, and it's very rare that I've gone and donated to that author's podcast. And I think it's just a mindset. It's a mentality thing. I do buy ebooks, and as a matter of fact, some of the ones I wanted to support, I went and bought their ebooks. But a lot of podcasters have built audiences, but have failed to monetize them. And, money is not what we're all after. But we all have to feed ourselves. We need a roof over our heads. And if we're going to produce content consistently and feed our audiences, then we need to feed ourselves, and we have to make money at it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a steak dinner out of it after I paid for my web hosting, Skype, all that stuff.
Exactly. A lot of effort goes into these things. And, as much as I love providing free content, and there's probably fans of mine out there that have never given me a penny and never will, and I am totally okay with that. Usually all I ask for somebody like that is, hey, if you know somebody else you think might like it, give it to them too. Just spread it. If everybody will help me spread it, I'm happy.
That's right.
But really, it's coming down to having, I'm at a point where I have the same 3 audiobooks free, and that you have to pay for. And both of them go. People still download the free one, and people pay for the premium one. So if you can come up with a way to package your content and do those sorts of things, there's a lot of opportunity out there today. Audiobooks, I can't say enough how much I think the audiobook market is going to shift in the next 2 years. Big retailers are putting a focus on it, like Amazon's putting a focus on it, and you have ACX, the new audiobook creation exchange, which is Amazon's answer to self-publishing audiobooks. You can record them yourself. You can hire somebody, have them record it, upload it yourself, or you can go on to ACX and essentially put your book up for auditions. You can say what kind of voice you're looking for, what kind of performance, and things along those lines, and voice artists can audition and tell you exactly what their rate would be per finished hour of audio to record your audiobooks. And that's something that I think more and more people are going to take advantage of. The folks who have taken advantage of the ebook revolution are looking for new frontiers. That audiobook frontier is big. And I already talked to, some of the folks that I've podcasted with in the past, just doing shows more like this one, of doing, a collection, the best of, and making an audiobook out of that, putting it up for people to be able to purchase it and having a way of monetizing some of that content that even though it's already available free somewhere else. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, and I'm always happy to talk with folks about that. I think it's one of the most exciting things we have going on right now. Is there's never been a better time to be a writer, podcaster, voice artist, content producer, artist, cover artist. It's a great time for independent artists and creatives to collaborate, to do some great stuff, and put it out to the world.
Yeah. And I guess tonight is Brian Rathbone. I had somebody in the chat room asking me, and I typed it out, but I figured I'd say it just for the record because I haven't done it in a little bit. It's the Malliard Report in case somebody has no idea what they're listening to. But again, with being digital, you know what you're clicking on. It's not like somebody's scanning the FM frequency and stumbling across it. So I guess that's my thing. But no, it is a great time. I was listening to stuff on my phone this afternoon when I was out in the mower. Much better than listening to FM radio. I could find what I wanted and set it up and had it right there. So
it really is nice to be able to listen to things on demand. I just became addicted to audiobooks when I was driving all over western North Carolina and up and down the East Coast. I would have hours in the car, and yeah, I could listen to the radio, I could listen to music, but when I put an audiobook in, and most of the time I was listening to fantasy, that's my genre, that's what I like to listen to, and it made the trips go so much faster. And to know that there's so many independent writers out there that want to get the attention of listeners, that, are giving away their books like on audiobooks and iTunes and things like that. I think there's a lot more content out there that people can get their hands on that maybe just not even aware of.
Yeah, I've got a Kindle, and I'm just finally cracking into all this different stuff and finding this, and it's amazing what you can, especially for free. You like you said, you can go out and experience an author and pick it or flick it and go from there with it. It's a good thing. It's a good way to get your content out there, especially because I'm not I don't want to say I'm a cheap person, but hey, if I can try something and then like it, it rolls downhill. But if I'm looking at stuff and some people are selling their books for $19.99 on my Kindle, and I'm thinking, I'd rather have a paper book for that price, but okay. So next.
Yep. Good luck with that one.
If you think that'll sell, anyways. So.
Yeah, selling is a lot of selling is psychology, and looking at that buying moment. And I look at what I do personally a lot when I'm trying to make decisions on how to market something. If I walk into a bookstore and I'm standing at the bookshelf and I'm looking at two equally compelling covers, and I look at one and I recognize the name, and one and I don't recognize the name, and they're the same price, I'm going to go with the one I recognize the name. I'm going to go with a known commodity where I know they haven't let me down before, and I don't want to waste my money on a bad book. Nobody likes to do that. So knowing that that's the case, as the author, what I try to do is give somebody the buying moment to say, you know what, I could spend $19.99 on the ebook from the guy that I know writes good books, but this guy is giving one away for free over here, and 300 other people have read it, reviewed it, and rated it, and said it wasn't horrible. Hey, I'll give that a shot and see if it's pretty good.
At least for 5 minutes, I'll download it, and then if I don't like it, I can delete it. That's the great thing about Kindle.
Exactly. And the other thing about it is to have the content to go behind it. If they saw it was, I had one book for free and one more book to go behind it, that's a lot more difficult to market, especially for fantasy readers who like series. When you look and you see there's a free ebook and then there's 5 more behind it, that's a bit more compelling. But I'll tell you one of my trade secrets as a book marketer. It's one of the things I learned early on. As I said, back in 2008, I did that print run. I spent close to $10,000 printing off 1,000 books. I didn't want to have to do 3 covers. I didn't want to have to do 3 layouts, 3 print runs. So I put all 3 of the books. I had the whole trilogy done. So I put all 3 in one omnibus edition and printed that. And that's how I marketed this book for the first year and a half, was 3 books in one, 1 book, 1 cover image, 1 blurb, pay a little more for it, And that was a horrible way to market that book. It just performed terribly in comparison to what it did as soon as I split it into the 3 individual books, started giving away the first one at the very least, and I've started giving away the first 2 just because I like giving away books. It's a lot of fun. But once I split it out into the 3, the funny part about it is when it was 3 books together, you could go to Amazon or go to Barnes & Noble and you could read the first third of the book for free as the sample, which essentially meant the first novel was free. Nobody did that. It was a preview. They didn't want to preview. They wanted to buy the book. So technically I'm giving away the exact same amount of content as I was when it was 3 books in one, but the psychology is much different.
Yes.
Now the psychology is I'm getting an entire novel for free. There's another entire novel for free. And if I like those 2, I can pay $3 to get the 3rd novel to finish out the trilogy. And that is a magic combination that readers are not afraid to try.
And then they'll see you have other books out, and then hopefully they'll go try them. And
exactly. And that's how it works. I mean, I've been fortunate. You know, I've given away over 500,000 ebooks. I've been fortunate enough to sell over 100,000 ebooks. It's something I never thought would happen, and I've worked with enough other authors that never would have thought it happened and kind of urged them to go in a direction, and now they're kicking my butt. So it's for those writers out there thinking, geez, you know, I don't know if I could ever get an agent or a publisher, you definitely don't have to go that route. And if you can succeed as a self-publisher, get your story out to enough people, let the people judge it. Readers have become the new gatekeepers. If you can get readers, you can get an agent, and you can get a publisher.
Right. And I can't remember who it was. This was a while ago. Somebody on my show said, "Don't ever look for an agent. Let them find you, and then remind them that you're doing just fine without them, so they don't take as much of your money."
They're really not wrong. They're really not wrong. It's that old thing when you really want something and you need somebody else to make the decision, you just want it to be their idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can make it their idea, it'll happen.
It's a lot easier to convince them to do it when it's their idea.
That's right. So with the agent, you want the agent to go, gee, I wish I represented that guy.
Oh, here comes a question from the chat room. Would you ask him if he copyrights any of the books or just uses an indie publishing company?
I actually started my own publishing company, White Wolf Press, and I don't do copyright protection on the books. Essentially, to my understanding, I'm not a lawyer. I do have a lawyer, and he tells me to tell everybody that I am not a lawyer. But basically what it comes down to is as soon as you write something, it's inherently copywritten. You own it. It's yours. However, you can pay money to get copyright protection, which essentially means that if you ever have to prove that it's yours, it's going to be a whole lot easier. So if you ever actually have to go to court and fight somebody over the copyright, you're better off if you have previously applied for copyright protection. For the folks who say, mail it to yourself and have it postmarked and all that, from my experience, that's probably not the way to go. And I chose not to go the route of pursuing the copyright protection just because of my experience as a software developer and having been through nightmares of applying digital rights management and copy protection and crack protection to things, that I found it was usually not worth the effort. And on that one note, I will say that my books have been pirated and stolen probably more times than they've been paid for. But my experience has been whenever it goes out on a torrent server or something like that, my sales do actually go up. It's an interesting thing, but I choose personally not to worry about the copyright. I self-publish through KDP, Amazon, through CreateSpace for my print books. I also do Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple, Sony, and Smashwords. So my free books are they're just out there. And every once in a while, somebody will try and take one of my free books and start selling it for $9.99 on one of these platforms, and I have to say, hey, take that down. But I have a very laid-back approach to it, because a lot of it comes from the software world, where the harder you make it for people to steal it, the more they want it.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's just kind of the twist it is. I mean, no matter what you do, if somebody wants, or especially if it gets on a BitTorrent site where somebody can just download it for free, you're kind of up the creek. There's no real fighting that. So.
Yeah, there really is no fighting it, and in the end, it's just free advertising. That's the way that I look at it. I know there are a lot of readers who have never paid me a penny and never will, and that's okay. You know, basically name recognition, having your work out there. Maybe they'll mention it to a friend who, you know, says, oh, I don't like torrent sites, but I'll go buy it for my Kindle. You know, I just kind of take it as, hey, that's free advertising. If I'm still earning a living, which I'm very happy and fortunate that this is the first, well, actually the second year that I've earned a full-time living as a self-published author, then I'm pretty happy with where things are going.
Now, I'm going to ask part of this question, Josh, because he already kind of covered this earlier in the interview before you got here, so sorry. But who's your favorite fantasy author?
I would say I relate most with Melanie Ron. I loved her Dragon Prince books. I also do love Ellie Modesett and Terry Brooks, Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, David Eddings. I enjoyed Terry Goodkind's books, George R.R. Martin's books. You know, I love Robert Jordan, except I learned some things not to do from them, not to leave my readers hanging for years on end, things like that if you can avoid it. I learned some things from them. But I've actually read several hundred fantasy books, and I get asked that question a lot. So one of the things, if you're just interested in the different types of fantasy that inspired me to write these books, if you go to brian-rathbone.com on the About Brian page, if you scroll down, you'll see my bookshelf at Shelfari. And I've rated and put a lot of the books that I read that inspired me to write fantasy up there as well. And there's a lot of good stuff up there. So if you're ever looking for a new book to read, I recommend take a look at my bookshelf, and you'll see some of the ones I like.
Yeah, and while you're there, don't forget to grab your free book. I'm going to get your 5 downloads tonight. I hope for a million. I'm going to hope for a million with you, but I'm going to get you at least your 5.
Excellent. Well, it's moving towards a million, so I'm happy.
That sounds like you're well on your way to that. So, hey, if I could be a small part of that, that's all good. Do you watch any movies? I mean, I know you spend all this time reading and writing. Do you watch movies?
I do. I don't watch as many, and it's usually I'll hear people talking about them, and eventually they'll be like, yeah, what did you think? And I'm like, I didn't see it. And they're like, oh, my God, you have to see this movie. And then I'll go and usually we use Amazon Prime for video. I got my wife a Kindle, got her a Prime subscription. We live way out in the country, and a lot of the stuff that we happen to use or want, you can't get locally, so we buy a lot of things, so the free shipping comes in handy. And I've got a Roku connected to the TV, so I can watch Amazon Prime videos on the big screen. And I'll tell you, that's a good experience. I don't like that.
Sounds like a good way to go.
I'm a sci-fi, fantasy, speculative fiction. What if? I am all about that. I love history and I love other things, but if I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, 9 times out of 10, it's a speculative fiction movie.
That's right. So how do you write? I'm assuming on a computer. You don't actually write it out longhand.
No. I sit down and I never learned to type. I actually got kicked out of high school when I was a teenager, and I just kind of taught myself stuff over the internet. So I don't even know how to type. I don't do keyboarding. But I worked as a programmer for so many years. I got pretty fast at my finger poking. And I've gotten to the point now where I go into this stream of consciousness trance-like state where I'm typing, I'm watching the movie in my head, and I'm typing and trying to make the words come out to describe what I'm seeing in my head, and I don't stop. I know even if I make a mistake, I just keep going. I don't stop to find the right word or the clever phrase. I just get the story out of my head. And then, so basically I'm just kind of pounding on the keyboard, stream of consciousness, get it out of my head. I write in 1,000-word stints or so, about a half an hour. I'll just sit down, brain dump for a half an hour, get up, take a walk, get something to drink, refresh myself, and then go back and write for another half hour. And usually in a day I can write about 5,000 words, a little more than a chapter. If I do that 25 days in a row, I've written a novel.
There you go.
I'm not saying it's good at that. I'm not saying it's good at that point, but it's written. And then you got to break out the chisel and the sandpaper and edit your face off.
somebody just posted this. How long does he spend writing a day? So that'd be what, 4 hours, something like that?
Usually I'll write for 9 hours. Oh. But there's a lot of wandering around and goofing off in between.
Yeah, I can follow that.
I found that if I got tired, if I sat down and said I'm going to write 4,000 words, 3,000 words in, my mind is wandering, and I'm kind of hungry, and I'm feeling like it's a chore, and my energy's low, and my writing sucks. And I thought, well, that's counterproductive. So what I try to do is write with energy. I have a couple of video games just old video games I've played for years. They're just boring. And I will play them to the point that I think, God, I could be doing anything else. This is boring. And I'll just want to go write. And I'll sit down and I'll write while I have that energy and while I have that desire, and just put all that energy into the writing, and it makes a huge difference in the end product.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Hey, we've got.
And the longer I do that, the easier the edits get.
Okay, we've got 30 seconds left. The show has flown by, which it always seems to do, which is good. Plug the website, plug your Twitter, get all that good stuff out there for people to find you one more time.
All right, I am brian-rathbone.com, brian-rathbone.com. I am at Brian Rathbone on Twitter. Love to connect with folks out on Twitter. And just type Brian Rathbone into Amazon, and you'll find my free ebooks. Grab them, grab a $2 audio book, and I really hope everybody enjoys the story. And thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, hang out with me for a few minutes while I play this intro, because I want to talk to you about this a little bit more. But okay.
You got it.
Before we flip that on-air sign to the off position, a quick reminder. For all things about the report, previews, and reviews, go to italkparanormal.com.
This is Thomas T. Fusco, author of the book Behind the Cosmic Veil, A New Vision of Reality, and originator of the theory of supergeometry. And you are listening to the Malliard Report.
Hi, this is Dave Roundtree, author of Paranormal Technology, Understanding the Science of Ghost Hunting, lecturer, author, and paranormal researcher. And when you're not busy in the field, do what I do and listen to the Malliard Report with Jim Malliard.
If you're looking for